Endurance Junkie podcast, episode 19. Hey Junkie, what's up, and welcome to another episode of the Endurance Junkie podcast, the show where I will be interviewing some of the fastest, smartest, and most inspiring people active in the endurance world today. Now, with Ironman Hawaii coming up this weekend, I thought it was a good idea to invite Thorsten Radde from triathlon.com to talk predictions and see who he picks as his winners for this weekend's race. Thorsten, thanks for taking the time to chat here today. Now, for those of us who don't know you, can you tell us a bit about yourself, your sporting background, and how you got involved in triathlon?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be on the show. My background, from personal basis, I am a self-employed IT consultant in my day job. And when I'm back home with my family and my dog, I spend a lot of time looking into triathlon results, specifically long distance results from the pro fields. And I try to analyze them in different ways. First of all, collecting all of the results from all the different races across the globe, and then putting them into perspective, which courses were fast, which athletes had a good result, which maybe were a little bit slower, and then putting that all together and try to come up with a ranking and rating system for long distance courses.
Yeah, cool. So that's what you do with tryrating.com. But where does that passion for triathlon come from? Do you race yourself?
Yeah, well, growing up, of course, as a German, you have to do some soccer and stuff like that. I did some field hockey, played tennis, but basically that was just when I was growing up. And when I went to university, I started to do some longer running, started running marathons, and did a couple of short distance and middle distance triathlons. Then, when I started to work, that fell a bit to the wayside, and got back to it when I was in my mid-30s, and did a couple of triathlons back then, and built up to, I think, 4 Ironmans that I did so far. And I basically try to run a marathon, at least one marathon per year, and keep that streak running for a bit.
All right, how's that going?
I think I'm at 23 or 24 marathons so far. I've never been really a fast guy, so my PR was just under 3:30. I think 3:29:52 or so, and that's been a couple of years ago. So not really fast, and I don't think I'll ever get that fast again, unless I make a lot of money and basically can retire from my day job and then just focus on sports for a bit. But we can all dream a bit, right?
Yeah, cool. Same here. All right. Now, basically, why I got you on the show, is you touched on the subject before. You analyze triathlon results. So when I look up your name on Google, I see the word geek coming up quite a lot, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, I think the I Am Talk guys came up with that nickname, and I think that's been working fine for me. Maybe a little bit different than what the sports guys usually come up with. A lot of people like the work with the numbers, and some have expressed that anything that's an Excel spreadsheet or beyond that is usually not their favorite thing. So a lot of people appreciate the work that I'm doing there.
Yeah, cool. So it's the website you have is tryrating.com. And can you quickly explain what the site is about and what you want to accomplish with it?
Yeah, basically that's my way of living the Ironman lifestyle. Not enough time for training with all the stuff going on in addition to that. So just following all the Ironman races that there are going on the calendar across the year. Of course, when I say Ironman, I don't just mean the WTC Ironman branded races, but challenge races and all the other long distance races over the Ironman-distance that are going on that have a pro field. And basically what I do is for each of the races that are there, I try to do two kinds of posts. One before the race when there's a start list available, which is sometimes tricky to get. Have a look at who's starting on the course and who's a faster athletes. Basically, come up with a kind of seeding system for that race. And then once the race is over, take the results from the race and analyze them both from a course perspective and from an athlete's perspective, who had a good race, who had a not so good race, and basically put all of that together. And there's a lot of things going on around just the pure results and the analysis of the results that are interesting. I mean, the KPR system that WTC put out for Kona qualifying, that's a lot of data stuff involved. And then you have all kinds of weird questions coming up once in a while. What's the shortest distance between two Ironman wins? Who had the fastest swim, bike, run? And I mean, there's a lot of questions that are relatively easy to answer once you have all the data available. So I try to look into that as they come up and put the answers out either on TriRating or if it's just a short one on Twitter or so, to help people out with the information there.
Oh, cool. And who's beneficial to all of that info? Do pros use it? Does the press use it?
Well, it's been growing a bit. I've been at it for 4 years now. I think 2011 is when I started, and it was just a small side project for me that has been growing. The TriPress has been picking up on it, and I was able to, for example, help Triathlete magazine with their Kona preview this year. I've been in contact with the Lava people and a couple of guys there, so that's interesting. Also getting at it from a journalistic perspective rather than a data analysis perspective, that's been a lot of fun. I know a lot of pros are following that, and sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't agree with my predictions. But I think I have a pretty level view of looking at things. And for example, one of the things that I find interesting is if you look at the North American races, they hardly ever know which of the European guys are coming over and how strong or fast they would be. So a lot of times those would get overlooked in the previews for the North American races. And I think that's one of the things where I can just put things in a better perspective overall. So lots of feedback that I've been getting, and I just try to help whenever there's questions out there that can be answered with the data that I have.
Cool. So if I get it right, so you take an athlete, for example, and say you have some results for this person, and he wants to, or he's entered for a certain Ironman race. You do some statistical magic there, and you take that previous results that he has, and you somehow multiply that with a course factor that if it's a difficult race or fast race or a slow race, and that way come up with a prediction for that same athlete on that typical course.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back a couple of steps, because the first thing is analyzing past results, and that happens on a race-by-race basis. So, for example, if I have one race results and everybody in the field has been going, say, 5 minutes faster than their rating is, or their expected time would be for that race, then I can basically say, well, probably if everyone's going 5 minutes faster, that it does not have anything to do with individual performances, but will be more a factor of the course. So then I can say the course is probably 5 minutes faster than some hypothetical medium course. If we have, say, 90% of the field going 5 minutes faster, and the rest of the field basically going at their expected time, then probably the course is pretty quick. But I can also say that those that have been going faster are probably normal, and those that have been going at their expected time are a little bit slower, or had a not so good day on the race day. And basically that allows me to come up with two different assessments. One that says, is the course fast or slow? And the other thing is, has the result for the particular athletes been a good result for that athlete or a slower result for that athlete? And I can pull that together into what I call course ratings, that basically says comparing different courses into slow and fast, and to pull that together into athletes ratings, which is kind of a course neutral number, assessing how fast that athlete will be.
Yeah. Okay.
And then going forward, I can use the course rating and an athlete's existing rating of basically predicting how that athlete is going to perform on a certain course, even if he has never raced there before.
Okay, I think I got it. So you use that course factor there. How do you determine the difficulty of a race and a course? And on a related note, which ones are the toughest, and which ones are the ones that you say people should go to if they want to go have a PR?
Well, if people want to have a PR, I mean, I don't know if people are actually determining where they want to race based on whether they can have a fast time, but a lot of known courses are pretty fast. Challenge Road is a known fast course. Ironman Austria is another pretty fast course, or in North America, Ironman Florida is probably the fast course there. But we've seen a number of newer Ironman races that also had pretty quick results. I mean, Barcelona used to be a challenge race. It's now an Ironman. That was a fast race. Sweden is a pretty fast course. Copenhagen is pretty fast. Chattanooga just had one race that was pretty quick. I mean, I don't know how much of that was because of the swim in the river and the current that was aided there. Mm-hmm. But those are the faster courses that are out there. And then slower courses, Tahoe was slow a couple of years ago. Ironman Wales is also a really, really slow course with slow swim and probably one of the hardest bike rides out there, even if it's close to the coast and not really that mountainous. Lanzarote is slow. Malaysia and Kona is also one of the slower courses. Mm-hmm. And I can also express the difference between results on different courses. So, for example, if we take Lanzarote, that one has a course rating of minus 10 minutes, and compare that to, say, Ironman Florida, which has a course rating of plus 22 minutes. So for a 9-hour athlete, there's more than 30 minutes between these two courses if you compare results from one course to another.
So you would say that a 9-hour athlete would go 8:15 in Florida, but is expected to go 9:22 in...
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you say Kona is one of the tougher ones?
Kona is one of the tougher ones, which is, I mean, it's pretty surprising that it actually is that slow. Kona, well, if we take Lanzarote at minus 10 minutes, Kona is about minus 4 minutes. And I would say probably the course is even slower than that, because maybe not everyone is really focusing 100% on Lanzarote. But if you look at Kona, I don't think any of the pro starters there is treating Kona as a tune-up race or just a race to get some points. Mm-hmm. So it's probably even slower than that.
Yeah, okay. Especially the swim, right?
Yeah, the swim is especially slow. That's where most of the negative numbers come from, with the current there. And I mean, the thing with Kona is you also have pretty variable conditions depending on how hot it is and how the wind turns out and if there's a swell on the swim and so on. So there's a lot of different conditions that you have to be able to deal with on race day in Kona.
Yeah, cool. All right. Now you've released your Kona 2014 rating report recently. Mm-hmm. You've been doing that for a couple of years, and it's I think this year it's a 90-page booklet of analysis and predictions and all other cool stuff that people might find interesting when they follow the live coverage this weekend. I'll definitely put a link in the show notes there for people to download it and maybe leave a donation there if they want to, because it really would help you out in what you do. So this, as I said before, it's the fourth time that you released this report. How have the previous three been when it comes to predicting the winners?
Yeah, when you sent me the questions, I actually had to have a look through the old reports on how I was actually doing, and I don't think I've been doing that well, which is probably a factor of Kona is really, really hard to predict. I mean, all the people that actually won the race, I think I had them in my top 3 picks. But with Kona, it's really hard to predict, and there's so many athletes so close together that it's really, really hard to figure out before the race what factor will influence how the race actually turns out. And there's little differences that can make a difference between a first and second or third place in Kona. And I mean, the thing that I found most interesting looking back was if you want to win Kona, you cannot do that with an average performance, even for such a great athlete such as take Pete or Crowe or Andy Relat. A lot of guys like that, if they want to win the race, they really have to have a totally awesome day, even for them, for their standard. So even a Crowe with an average day, I mean, he would probably just turn out fourth, like in 2010 or so. Or Andy Relat, who always was pretty close to the front on the races that he was doing well. He didn't have this one race where he was 15 minutes quicker than what you would have expected him to race, and that's probably why he hasn't won Kona yet. So Kona is really hard to predict just from a numbers perspective, and of course. The small factors that make a difference, we hardly know them before the race, because I guess most of the athletes don't really know that before them.
Yeah, and I guess the easy question, the easy analysis is you get 50 guys who are able to go for the win. Well, the other Ironman races, you have maybe 3 or 4 really pros that stick out and that will be able to go for the win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I liken this to, I mean, of course, I can have a statistical analysis of when you're throwing the dice, and I can give you all kinds of statistics for that. But when you're throwing the dice and it's just an experiment of one, you can't really predict what's going to turn out. The analysis that I'm doing is of course looking at averages, and that is interesting in itself. For example, determining a ranking between all the different athletes that you have, but it's really hard to predict one race with such a close and strong field such as Kona.
Right.
So the thing that I found interesting, or that I've been going into more and more, and that's also probably why my rating report was was 90 pages this year, is you can have a look at how the race is going to develop in Kona or in any other Ironman races that you have there. And Kona is especially interesting because the race dynamics is going to have a huge influence on what you'll be able to see in the live coverage, and also the questions that would be interesting to look into while the race is going on. The example would be if you take Rinny last year, she was always 5 to 10 minutes behind the front of the race, but I don't think we didn't see too much of her in the race coverage from Kona last year. But her run is so strong compared to the other athletes on the women's side that she can easily give up 5, 7, 8, maybe even 10 or 12 minutes to the rest of the field, and still basically be the virtual leader in the race because her run is so amazing. And that's the thing that I found more interesting, and that's why I found this analysis that I'm doing helps me even make the race or following the race more interesting, because there's all these little numbers and questions in your mind that you can look for, and that are hard to pick up if you're just following the race, without looking at how it's going to unfold before the race.
Because you do follow the race live as well, and you have a live feed. Is that correct?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have not been making enough money to be able to fly to Kona and follow the race on site. But just as I guess the rest of the people are following, just through the I Am Live website and the webcast there. And then sometimes there is stuff going on German TV that they're showing too, that at least gives me an indication of who's leading the race and the questions discussed by the commentators. But then also digging into the splits that are putting out on the athlete tracker and so on. And that's one of the things that I did last year, was basically doing live predictions, mixing up the splits that occurred so far, and mixing that with predictions or anticipated times for, say, the run split, and then see who's the virtual leader overall. And that's probably one of the things that I'll be doing again for this year on Kona.trirating.com. My live predictions during the race still have a couple of pieces that need to fall in place for that to work, but it's looking pretty good. So that was a very interesting project that I did last year, and a lot of stuff going on Twitter, a lot of things being discussed about that. So I was able to basically assess. I mean, even if Rinny was so far behind after the run, I think I still had her as the leader pretty early on. And on the men's side, I didn't have Freddie so far, so sorry for the Belgian folks there, but he had a great run, and Sebastian Kienle, who I saw as the front runner for a long time, didn't quite have the run that he would have needed to beat Freddie there.
Cool. All right, so I'll put that link up as well, so that people can follow it, because despite WTC and GoPro now bringing the Kona coverage, I think there's a lot of work that can be done there to improve coverage, and I guess that's one of the reasons why you didn't really get that much info on Rinnie's placings during last year's race. But that's a totally different subject. What about this year? Who are your favorites, and how do you see the race unfold?
Well, the unfolding race, if we go for the men's side, I mean, I have the typical candidates there. Won't be too many surprises. Of course, I have Frederik Lundlid up there. I have Sebastian Kienle up there. Those are the two names that I guess would be mentioned most often. From a pure numbers perspective, I also have two other Germans up there, Andreas Rehlert and Nils Frohnhofer. Andy probably not having had the best season so far, so I don't really see him up there. Niels would be a big question mark, because he has a number of really fast Ironman so far, but first Kona race, so anything can happen there. And then you have the typical candidates. Marino would be up there based on his performances. Crowe, although I'd put a question mark against him too. Paul Matthews is another name that I haven't really seen mentioned so often. That'll be an interesting one, because
I think he's a really interesting dark horse.
Yeah, he's his slowest Ironman so far was 8:05. Yeah. He's been training with Crowe a lot, so I spoke with him and put up an interview on triathlon.com with him. Crowe must have chewed his ear off telling stories about the Kona race, and I think he'll be both physically and mentally very well prepared to mix it up very close to the front there.
How about the girls?
Well, on the women's side, you basically have, of course, Rinnie as the clear favorite. She won so convincingly last year with such a fantastic run that she has to be considered the overall favorite. But I guess there's at least two others that would also vie with her for the win. Rachel Joyce and Caroline Steffen. Those are the two that I see as the main contenders. Both have had pretty good seasons. Both would probably be ready to win the race after their great results in the past. And if Rinnie doesn't have the perfect day as she had last year, I'm sure that one of them will be in a position to win the race. So if it's predictions for the win, I think that these three are the names that I see going up there. If you move beyond that, I mean, if you go for the top 10, there are so many names that you should mention, and there are a lot of names that would play a role during the race too. I mean, Jody Swall will probably lead the race after the swim, and she'll probably try to hold on to the lead as well. Meredith Kessler will be there. That'll be interesting to see how much she can improve. And then you have the dark horse Daniela Reef, still undefeated over the Ironman-distance. First Kona for her, and probably going into the race without too many expectations. That'll be a real interesting one to see how she's going to do in Kona this year.
All right, cool. Well, definitely a lot of things to look forward to this weekend. I guess you'll be spending all night watching the race.
Yeah, I hope that the coverage is a little bit better than what we saw from the 70.3. I guess we can expect a lot better coverage there, and I don't know how much actual live we'll be able to see from the course. But I'm really looking forward to the night of following Kona again. I don't know how much will be going on for you guys in Belgium, but we have the live coverage. There's usually stuff on German TV that'll be going on. So among these channels, there should be some interesting facts to get from.
No, normally here we just get the Ironman live feed, and that's about it. You also run another website called IMPredictions.com, which sort of is a following up on what you do with Tri Rating, and I guess it's sort of a little fantasy triathlon league. Can you quickly tell us about that and what people can do there?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago, I was contacted by a Canadian ex-pro, Luke Dragster, who was also doing his version of predictions for Kona, and I mean he's quite as much a tri geek as I am. He's not that much into numbers, but he knows a lot of people, knows a lot of the athletes, and basically we came up with ironpredictions.com. The idea is that you can submit your own picks for the upcoming races. Kona is, of course, the biggest one that we're doing there, but we've also done a number of races over the season. You can submit your picks, and then you get points on based on how good your predictions came true, or how good your predictions did in the race. And we do a lot of races over the season, have a kind of season pass coming up. We have a championship edition focused on the 70.3, on Kona, and on Challenge Bahrain. And Luke also talked a lot of people into giving us a couple of nice prices. So for our season pass, we have a set of race wheels from Planet X that he's supplying. And for the championship edition, we have, for example, a free entry to Challenge Road and Challenge Bahrain, and a couple of other races going on there. Let's see who else. Ironman Sweden is a free race entry, and a free race entry to Challenge Almere. So lots of nice prices, but of course just bragging rights and just our interest in seeing who other people are picking for the win. For Kona, it's quite interesting. Currently, we have the main pick on the men's side is Jan Frodeno, which is not because so many Germans are picking it, but it's worldwide audience. And on the women's side, Rini is the clear favorite there. So that's pretty similar to what we've been talking about. But that's the website, im-predictions.com. You can just head over there and put your picks. Top 10 is, I think, what we're doing for Kona. And then maybe win some prizes. And we have our own podcast where we chat about the upcoming races and the fields that are there. And we've extended a bit for this year. We'll probably do some more for next year and see what other ideas that come up there. Lots of interesting stuff to do. And
cool.
Just a lot of fun to chat with Luke on an ongoing basis about the fields.
All right, cool. Make sure to add those links to the show notes. One final thing I want to ask you is, with all the recent changes that have been going on in WTC and non-pro races and the grouping of the prize money to a couple of the regional championships and everything. How do you think that's going to affect racing for next year?
Well, I think for the main athletes, the general move is a good one because it increases the strength of the field that we're seeing, and it makes the races that are still having a pro field more interesting and more competitive than we've seen in the past. Where I'm not so sure is, two things. One, we've only seen changes for North America so far. We can expect changes for other regions around the world, but we haven't seen any of them so far. So I guess something similar to what happened in North America will also probably happen for European and other races. Still waiting for that to show up, because actually, even though WTC announced that there will be fewer races with pro fields, for the 2015 season, we'll be having more races than we've seen in the past. So that's a bit strange for now, until they've worked the whole system. And the other thing is, it makes it more difficult for up-and-coming athletes to use Ironman as a springboard for getting their name out, because they don't have so many chances of getting their name out and perform well, and maybe talk to sponsors as an Ironman champion and use that as a bit of leverage of going ahead in the sport. So that's the thing that worries me a bit. If WTC is cutting maybe not the 2015, 16, 17 athletes off, but the guys that would be coming through the ranks right now and might be in a position to win Kona in 2020. And that's the thing that they don't really seem to be too much interested in right now. And I hope that either some of the other races are going to pick up the slack there. Challenge is moving pretty aggressively in North America.
Yeah, I think Challenge is moving incredibly in the US and worldwide. So I think a lot of people will come up through those races.
So that'll be interesting to see how the relationship between WTC and Challenge and other race organizers is going to develop over the next years. I mean, we've seen stuff like Nice, that was a big race in the 1980s, basically fall to the wayside. I hope that that's not the thing we're going to see in Kona, that important race just gets less and less prestige over the years and then just happens to be an afterthought now.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, Thorsten. It'll be interesting to see what's going to happen this weekend. And maybe we should talk again sometime after the race and then see how your predictions held up.
Well, hopefully my predictions were not too bad. I mean, it's either a Belgian or a German winning the race, right?
One of us will be happy. All right. Anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, I guess you already mentioned my rating report. That's the thing that if people are interested in having a look at the pro field for Kona, head over to, I guess the easiest one would be to tryrating.com, and I should have a big post on top of my page right now with a bunch of Kona resources, my rating report, the link there, a bunch of podcasts that I've been involved in and that others have put out, a lot of things on Endurance Planet that Tony Prasik and I have been putting up, so lots of stuff that you can get there. Also the link to Iron Predictions. So yeah, I guess that's a great resource for people to look for the Kona race and the information that is out there.
All right. We'll put everything in the show notes. Thanks again for your time, Thorsten. Much appreciated.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Bye.